So how's everyone doing? Good. I have a secret for you guys. Are you guys ready for it? You guys want to hear a secret? But it's got to stay in this room. Can it stay in this room? Okay. How many of you guys went to the national conference? Everyone? Okay. All right. So you guys were all at the national conference. So you guys were there for the opening moment, the intro where we did the, Ignite Your Intensity. Yes, Ignite Your Intensity. And we had the glow sticks and everything, right? You guys were all there for that? So what you guys probably don't know, and this is the secret part, is that before we do any stage show, it can be the one you saw at National Conference, it can be Retail Keys or whatever, it doesn't matter. We have rehearsals and we have walkthroughs. And there's an entire company and their job is to make us look good. And so they script this stuff out, they send it out to us, and we actually have practice. We come in the day before, we actually have to stay in the back of the room, do our walk up the whole nine, right? So when you're that scripted, and the show flow is by minute, by second actually. There's a big clock right there at our feet that tells us how many seconds. When Ed and Michael and Adam were on stage to speak at Retail Keys, they were given 45 seconds each to speak. That was it, like 45 seconds. So this is a well-oiled precision time machine, right? So nothing irritates these people more than when you say, oh, I haven't scripted out what I'm going to say. Or I don't have it written out, or how long is it? Approximately 10 minutes. I can't do approximately. I need to know 10 minutes and 34 seconds. Like they need to know exactly what's happening, right? So I was emceeing the national conference, and I actually am on the committee for the consultants that plans all the events. And when we were planning the theme and we were talking about what we were going to do, we came up with the idea. I said, we're talking about intensity and ignite your intensity. And I said, I just have this visual of like a single spark, because there's a quote that I'd heard recently that said, never doubt that a single spark can start a wildfire. And I just had that visual and that vision. So we're doing the rehearsals, we're doing all this stuff, and they asked me, the Orion team, the event planners, they say, so what is your opening speech and how long is it going to be? And I said, I know you don't want to hear this, but I have it written in. And they were freaking out. It's the day before. It's 3,500 people. They need to know precision timing, exactly what's going to happen. And I had to be honest. I had to say, I haven't written it yet. And they were a little frustrated, as you can imagine. But I promised them, I said, I'll watch the clock, I'll know what's happening, whatever. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is not because I'm encouraging to not be prepared. That's not what I'm trying to say. But if I had worried about what I looked like on stage, or what I was going to say, or what you guys were going to think of me or whatever, then I probably would have screwed it up. Because it's a lot of pressure when you've got that much. It's $1 million production, right? So the truly great performers, people that are professional speakers, people that are athletes, people who are musicians and bands and things like that, they don't worry about what they look like on stage as much. What they worry about, and what my focus is how do I want the people in the audience to feel? Right? So if I can think and focus on how I want you to feel, I'm not worried about what I look like. I'm not worried about what I'm going to say. I could actually just think about, like, what do I want you to walk away with? What actions do I want you to take when you leave this conference? And it keeps you from worrying about, oh, is this hair out of place, or is that joke funny, or whatever, because all it is genuine wanting that person to feel a certain way. And the reason I'm talking about this with you guys is because I want you to understand is that no one remembers what you say, but they all remember how you make them feel. And if you think about the majority of things in our business that scare us, or even in life, that scare us, that intimidate us, or times where we've had fear, or times where we're doing something for the first time, as a lot of you guys are going to start doing, the only time we are fearful or scared is when we think about how we come across, how people see us. But if you turn that around and you say, you know what, I don't care if I look like an idiot. I don't care if I make a mistake. I don't care if people think that I'm not articulate or intelligent. All I care about is that Kent walks away with this emotion, or that Mike feels this way, or that Monique is able to take this action as a result of what I'm saying. And if you can put people in that situation, think about everything we do in our business, and in life really, for that matter, right? If you put that other person first, then it's not as stressful for you. So I have a hunch. Like back in the day, people used to ask me what makes people successful in our business. And I used to say all kinds of stuff, work ethic, intensity, student mentality. But I have actually found a common thread that I think every single person in the room can agree with, and it's universal truth for people that excel in our business. So I have a question for you guys. How many of you like to people watch? Raise your hand. Like, I'm talking on a college campus, I'm talking in the mall, the airport, you're like looking at people. Okay, so everybody's like, yeah, we all like to people watch. And let's be honest, you just said that because I said successful people in business say that. So you guys all raised your hand, right? I set you up for that. But this is the thing, is that's why I love the field. There is no better people watching than working with customers, whether it be business to business or residential. How many of you guys are on residential? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you have seen duct tape used on someone's home or vehicle? Raise your hand. Right? I mean, redneck ingenuity at its finest. I've literally seen a pool table that was in someone's garage, and it was missing a leg, and where the fourth leg should have been, they had 2 spare tires propping up that pool table. I was like, this is awesome, right? Don't throw it away. Just use those spare tires you're not using and use it to prop up the pool table, right? So we love to people watch. And I love to make up stories about people in my head. Like, oh, especially at the airport. I'm like, oh, is that his girlfriend, his mistress, his wife? Like, what's going on here? I love it. But part of that is being obsessed with the human condition and how people make decisions and why they do and say the things they do. And so if you're a people watcher, then you have a genuine interest in people. And if you can take that genuine interest and turn it into everything you're doing, like I said, how does that person feel? Because no one remembers what you said, they just remember how you made them feel. And think about that with interviews, think about that with training, think about that with developing others. Because if a dog can smell fear, people can tell what your true intentions are. And if your true intention is to help this person, and I think we have 2 responsibilities, to help people make great decisions, and to help them reach their highest potential. So our responsibility as leaders is to help people make great decisions and help them reach their highest potential. So if that's my focus and that's my goal, and I have a genuine interest in people, then I am going to act and behave a certain way. I don't have to follow a script every single time I'm doing an interview. It's helpful for training people and for being replicable, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But I'm sharing this with you guys because I want you to understand, how many of you guys, I would say within the first 5 interviews that you took out, had a new start? Raise your hand. Right? Okay. Did you know anything about interviewing at that point? No, absolutely not. You're a likable person. You were asking questions. You just wanted to get to know that person. In fact, you probably screwed it up. I mean, can you go back and God, I have no idea how that person started, right? But because you didn't know any better. You weren't trying to sell them on the business or get them to start. You were trying to get to know more about them. So what are some questions you would ask someone if you're just, like if you walked out there in the lobby and there was a gentleman standing there and you stuck your hand out and said, hi, I'm Brandie. What are some questions you would ask that person to get to know them better? What are some questions you would ask? Where are you from? That's like my go-to for sure. What else? Where are you for work? Okay, what else? What are you for fun? Kind of music?
What's your team?
Okay. What, your sports team? That's an easy one, right? So my point is those questions, those are the same type of questions you would ask someone if you're interviewing them. And probably when you were doing your first interview, when you didn't know any better, that's what you're doing. And then what happens is then we get told, like, well, here's the script and here's how you really do it. And, this is what you say. Well, I got news for you. If someone actually enjoys answering the question of, tell me about your marketing experience, they are probably in the wrong interview, right? Like if someone that's going to answer that question, they shouldn't be answering our ad online. They shouldn't be in our lobby. That person that wants that, type of interview question, they don't like strawberry ice cream, and we're strawberry ice cream. So it is what it is, right? So my point in this is if we're thinking about this in this mentality, I want you guys to understand this should bleed over into everything you do. And what I mean by that is I think people get really confused when they're recruiting. I think they think of law of averages as recruiting. And it is, as a manager, when you're getting the funnel going and all that kind of stuff, you have to have numbers in the door for sure. But these people that come in the field is absolutely law of averages. No problem with that, right? No means next, got that. That's fine. But these people who come in for interviews, they have hopes and dreams and goals and aspirations and families. They are not law of averages. They are human beings that you have the ability to have a massive impact on their life. you could change their life for the better. So I don't like looking at those people like, law of averages. And I also feel very strongly about the fact, and I feel great about what we do, that 100% of the people that set foot in any of our offices, no matter how long they're with us, they are far more employable and they're going to get something out of it. You can't be around us without being a little more positive, without even learning. If you just learn the concept of controllables versus uncontrollables, you're going to be a better human, right? And so I feel really good about when people come in, they're going to get something great out of it. And if that's the case, then when I'm looking at people, I'm not looking at them like, oh, you're leader number 1, you're leader number 2, you're leader number 3. I'm like, you are a human being. Is this a mutually beneficial relationship? Can I help you have a better life, regardless of how long it is? And this is something that people, struggle with, especially as you open up your offices and you guys are expanding. What people struggle with is they lose that genuine connection with people. You get your feelings hurt. You have people that start and they quit and they leave you, and your ego gets a little bruised, right? And then you go into a cynical world, right? You go into the world where, when someone leaves or whatever, you start talking negative about them, or you start saying, people who are in the office like, oh, Kinesia couldn't cut it. She wasn't strong enough. Well, if you're saying that about her to someone else in the office, what do your people think you're saying about them when they're not around? You're teaching your people how to respond and behave. And by the way, if you get cynical and you approach recruiting that way, or you're like whatever, does that benefit you long term? Is that a great attitude to attract people to your business? Not at all, right? And that's why I want to really focus on that genuine aspect of how do we make people feel. And if a cornerstone of our business is, guess what? My goal in life is every human I come in contact with to help them have a better life. If that's truly your mission, then you won't get cynical. Because that new person that's coming in, or that interview, they don't know that they're the 30th person you've interviewed that day. They don't know that someone quit on you recently and that your heart's broken because of it. So don't they deserve the same excitement? Don't they deserve the same, education you gave the very first person that started your team? It's not the new girlfriend's fault that the last one cheated on you, right? So when these people come in, if you look at it with the right mindset and the right intentions, then you will have the right results. Does that make sense? You guys with me so far? So if we're talking about how we make people feel, we're talking about how that bleeds into everything. It's going to bleed into our recruiting. It's going to, and by the way, if you operate your business with the mindset of how can I help people live their best life, do you think people are attracted to that? Absolutely. Do you think that, that people want to be around you, that they want to learn from you? And if, like I said before, if a dog can smell fear, people can tell your true intentions. So if your intentions, I've seen people all the time who work really hard, and on paper, everything looks right. They've got the interviews coming in, they're hitting the field, bless you. They're doing team nights or whatever, and they just can't get it together. They can't build their office, they can't whatever. And I'll go and I'll visit, and I'll see it firsthand. I'm like, you're doing everything right, you're working really hard, but the root cause, unless you're approaching with the right mindset and mentality, like if I'm only running an office so I can get something for me, people can tell that. And you're not going to attract people to you when they're like, oh, like people are like, huh, that's weird, right? Even if you're an honest person, people feel like you're not trustworthy or something because they feel like your intentions aren't pure, right? So I want to make sure, like I said, as the manager, that you have the right mentality when you're running your business, that you teach your people how to think and how to approach that. And that also, too, that will keep you from having negative reviews online. Because when people leave, you're not like, oh, blah, whatever. You're like, hey, listen, I think this is awesome. I'm glad you're moving on to do something different. If there's anything I can help you with, let me know. Because I just want this person to have a great life. I don't care if they have a great life in my office or not. And by the way, when you're, Ed and I have been in Atlanta now, I mean, I've been here for 20 years, for 19 years. This is Ed's community, literally. Like our kids go to school here. You know how many people we bump into that aren't in the business anymore? So do we want that person who maybe driving our kids' school bus or maybe checking us out at Kroger, do we want that person to be frustrated or have a bad experience or to be sour against what we do? No, we want them to leave with a great taste in their mouth. We want them to be happy. We want them to be excited. We want them to have a great life. I want as many productive members of the community as possible. And if it's not with my business, I think that's awesome. but I sure as heck don't want them to be sour, to be bitter, or anything like that.
Hey, can I add something there as well?
Sure.
Like, everyone plays a role. Like, you guys are going to be managers. I ended up being a manager, you know. There's going to be lots of people that come and go that will play a role, and like Brandie said, they'll get a great experience from working with you, and it will make them better in the thing that they end up doing. But, you know, if I told you who Chelsea Lewis was, you didn't know her name, but she took Hannah out on an interview, right? So everyone plays their part, you know, and as long as you're creating a great environment and everyone's having a great experience, you know, people will come and go, and then some of us will be managers, some of us will be consultants, and other people will be with you for 2 weeks and realize it's not for them. And I used to get cynical about it as well. But then I thought about my mom wouldn't do this business, my sister wouldn't do this business. That doesn't make them bad people. They're just trying to put a circle in a square. You know what I mean? So once I kind of figured that out, I don't know, every day felt I wasn't angry.
It just feels better, right? Yeah. And that's something too when we talk about limiting beliefs. But imagine you're frustrated, angry in the office, or you're frustrated about a situation. You don't get to just turn those emotions on and off from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then come home and think you're suddenly like a great spouse or like an awesome boyfriend, girlfriend. Like, it doesn't go that way. It bleeds over into it. So why walk around being frustrated? Why walk around doing that? And it's difficult. I get it. I remember when I was in the field, and it was my quote unquote fourth leader on my team, and she called in the office, and you guys know the drill, the old I can't talk, you know, whatever. And I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine. And she was gone, and we didn't have text messaging back then, by the way, so she wasn't able to text me. She had to actually call the office and communicate. And when she actually came in to get her paycheck, yeah, exactly, the good old days. But when she came in to get her paycheck that Friday, I'm so embarrassed to tell you, it looked like she had a goiter. Like, her throat was so swollen, and she opened her mouth, and like the two sides of it were touching. It was disgusting. Like, I don't know how she swallowed anything. And I was like, Stephanie, what? And she goes, well, I don't have health insurance. I'm like, you got to go to the hospital. I'm like, this is bad. Like, it was really bad. And I felt the one time you're cynical, the one time you're whatever, you know, that it'll prove you wrong. So, you know, and it's just more fun to expect the best out of people. It's just more fun. Like you said, it's more fun to not walk around frustrated and angry and thinking the world's out to get you. It's just, it doesn't serve you. It's not beneficial. And most importantly, the people who are around you, like, it's your best life ever. So your personal life will be better if you approach it with that mentality and that aspect as well, right? So we're talking about how we make people feel and our mentality of how we approach the business and how we approach our training and development of people and things like that. So if we're going to help people make great decisions, and we're going to help them reach their highest potential, there's a couple things we have to do, right? So the first thing we have to do is we have to help them realize what their potential is. And this is pretty difficult. So who can I pick on? Can you say, when you were a kid, what do you want to do when you grow up?
What I want to be, a doctor.
Okay. So at what point did you decide you were not going to be a doctor?
My first class of biology.
So in college or high school?
College.
Okay. So when you say you're going to be a doctor, like, what are some things, like, up until that class in college, like, that you did to, like, that made you think, like, I'm going to be a doctor? Like, did you do doing internships? Did you work in a hospital? Were you a candy striper? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, I did like the advanced courses in high school, so AP biology. I did like extended like gifted and talented programs. I shadowed, went to hospitals with little kids like St. Jude's.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
So no one told you, hey, you're never going to be a doctor. No one said that to you. So you got to college, you took the class, and you're like, oh no. Okay. And then, so this is very similar to me, actually. Like, I had my whole life planned out. I knew exactly what I was going to. I knew what my major was going to be. I was going to be a lobbyist for the environment when I grew up. That was my whole plan. Like, everything's planned out. Like, I was very involved in 4-H. I was involved in politics with the Capitol. I was a page. I interned, you know, all these kind of things. And then my senior year, I actually like had the position at the Capitol, and I realized very quickly that what I thought the position was and what the reality of it was were two totally different things. And so what happened when that happened to you? And you're like, oh my gosh, now what process did you get there? What did you do?
Well, I changed my major first.
Were you just in shock though? Like, oh my gosh, it's not going to work, and it's my whole life plan. Like, what did you do?
Like, yeah, I was sad. I was a little sad at first because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. The workload and like the class I was going to take super early and stuff like that. Like, I was like, I knew I wasn't going to be able to have that passion long term to carry that through.
Right.
So I was sad. I kind of was like in limbo. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I just started taking like random kind of general courses.
Right.
In hopes that things would just fall into place throughout the rest of college, to be honest. And then that's pretty much what I did.
Okay.
I talked to like my counselor, and then she was like, "Well, psychology is like the new hot thing." I was like, "Sure." I was like, "Let's try it."
You and 7,000 other majors at UGA, right? Yeah, exactly. So when we talk about helping someone reach their highest potential, in her mind, her highest potential was being a doctor. And fortunately, no one told you couldn't do it or there wasn't attainable or whatever. And then when the reality hits and smacks her in the face that that's not going to happen, like most people, you waffle. And then you settle. You go from doctor to, well, I guess I could do it, psychiatrist or psychology. Like, that's kind of the same thing. It's the new hot thing or whatever, right? So there's a process that people do. And every single one of us probably has a similar story, whether it be, maybe like, Ed, when you thought you were going to be a pro golfer.
Well, interestingly, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a man in the street with a pneumatic drill, with his shovel.
The jackhammer?
With his shovel.
And who dashed your dreams of that?
I don't know when I lost.
I think you took your shirt off.
I know, right? Someone saw him shirtless and was like, dude, that is not a good career for you. Like, keep that shirt on, we're good, right? But everybody has that, right? We've had that. We could tell it with maybe a sport that you were going to play, that you thought you were going to be a pro golfer, or maybe a career you thought you were going to have, or just we all have a story like that, right? And so what happens is, think about the people that come in that you're training, that you're working with, that you're developing. They have a story like that. And for some people, the story they tell themselves is like, oh, I'm not smart enough to be a doctor. I'm not good enough to be a pro athlete. Well, you can't tell yourself these stories without having that bleed over and to make it feel like you're settling for something, right? Oh, I'm doing this because I'm settling for this or whatever. So we have a lot to work against when we're trying to help people reach their highest potential. Because part of it is just reigniting their passion and their flame and understanding, hey, what does a life well lived look like? How can we be intentional about what our future is going to be? How can we, what are you really passionate about? And how can we show that you can do this through this business? So for me, and the reason this is so important is because if you can dial down to someone's subconscious and you can get them thinking a certain way, and there's something they're passionate about with every fiber of their being, there's no way that they won't be successful long term, right? So I'll give you guys an example. So I'm not saying that the person that you're interviewing or training is going to say, it's been my lifelong passion to run pitch circles. Like, that's not what I'm saying, okay? Like, that's no one like goes to sleep at night like, dear God, when I grow up, I just want to play Mafia in Atmosphere. Like, that's not what I'm talking about, okay? But what I'm talking about is there's something that resonates with people so much that they will fight with every fiber of their being to make it happen, right? So for me, there were the main driver, and I'll get in a second, but the main driver for me was travel. I did an internship in New Zealand my senior year, and it was amazing. I went to 14 different research stations between the North and South Island. I finished my project early, so the CEO of the company said, Brandie, take the last month off and just travel. So I was with this group called the Kiwi Experience. You just get on the bus and you get off the big green bus, and you would go from the different hostels, which is, it's like a cheap hotel where there's 18 people in a room, on wooden bunk beds and community bathrooms and stuff. And it was like, $5-10 a night or $15 or whatever, right? So I met up with a great group of people. There were these two girls from the UK and these two guys from Switzerland, and they were so much fun. And safety in numbers, so we would travel to the same hostels and things like that. And on the towards the end of our little tour, they said, Brandie, you should come with us to Australia. And I said, you're going to Australia next? Yes. Okay. Well, how are you going to pay for it? Because I had an internship and I was getting paid. So I was fine. Like, I was eating out and having the nice meals, whatever. These guys were traveling the world. They had started off in the U.S., had come down to Hawaii, Fiji, come to New Zealand, and they were working their way back through. And they were poor. And when I say they were poor, they were like, sharing ramen poor, okay? And so they said to me, well, what we're going to do is when we go to Australia, we're going to go work in an apple orchard. And we're going to get paid cash under the table, and that's how we're going to afford to go to Asia. Now, have any of you guys in here ever done like real manual labor? Anyone? Like real manual labor? What do you consider real manual labor?
I used to de-van coffee bean bags from a 20-foot trailer.
That sounds miserable. Yeah, that's legit. That's legit. What have you done?
I grew up on a dairy farm, so picking up stones for 14 hours a day in a field.
Oh my gosh! No, we had to pick up rocks. I don't understand. Like, yeah, same thing. We get paid like a penny a rock, and we'd have to pick up rocks, put them. I know, right? Put them in the back of the truck. We drive them over. We dump them off. Whatever. That's insane. You didn't get paid. Were your parents the kind of like, hey, you get to eat, don't you? Like, that's fine. That's your payment. Yeah, pretty much. Right. So, like, think about like when they said that about the apple orchard. Think about picking up stones in a field for you. Like, these guys had this vision of like, a lovely apple. I shall pick it from the tree and put it in my satchel. Like, I knew what they were thinking. And I knew the truth. I had done manual labor. I grew up in a dairy farm. I knew the truth. I knew that they'd be working like, 16 hours a day and be making $20 cash if they were lucky. And like, yeah, so I knew. So when they said that about like, oh, come to Australia with us, we're gonna pick apples, that's why we're gonna keep going, something inside of me snapped. And I said to myself, I will see the world someday, but it is not going to be staying in $15 a night hostels. It is going to be from the front of the airplane in 5-star hotels, and I'm going to do it the right way. And I didn't even write it down. I didn't whatever, but that thought was so burned into me. I was like, oh no. Like, you guys go to Australia. And by the way, I had 1 quarter left at Georgia. My parents would have absolutely murdered me if I tried to travel the world without graduating college, right? So. But that's been for me, that's like the fiber of my being, like, I love travel. And at 20 years of age, I'd only ever been on a cruise to the Bahamas. That's the only time I ever left the country. And now at 42, I've been to 38 different countries. And it's not from doing like, I'm going to do this 7-country tour. Like, no, we fly to a country, we hang out there, and then we fly back. And then we fly to another country, and we hang out there, and then we fly back, right? So if you have something that resonates with you that deeply, and you recognize that it's something that you can accomplish through this business, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So you've got to dial down into that and help people reach their highest potential with that. The other thing as far as helping people make great decisions is you have to actually allow them to make decisions. So we've all done it. But with people, especially in the beginning, you guys have heard Ed's wet cement theory, which is in the first 72 hours. They're the most crucial time when you're coaching and developing somebody, because cement can be a statue, it could be a sidewalk out there, but once it's set, it's set. And so when you're helping people make decisions, you have to actually allow them to. And we've all been in a hurry. And you're like, hey, just write this down. Hey, just say that, just whatever. And you do it fast in the moment. But the problem is when you do that, you're forever more going to be coaching that person, because they're not going to be comfortable making decisions. They're going to wait for you to tell them what to do. And it gets real old real fast. You guys ever had that person on your team who texts you 48 times a day? Chances are you did not teach them how to make decisions from word go when they started. So when they first start, you need to ask people low risk questions, like the results are low risk. And then when they actually get it right, you need to over promote it. So what are some examples of some low risk questions that you can ask someone that you're training? Yeah, where are we going to eat lunch? Exactly, right? So, and when they say Subway, you're like, you're a genius, that's awesome. It's fast, we can go in, we can get out, blah, 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 whatever. As opposed to if you just say, hey, we're going to eat lunch at Subway, then 2 weeks later that person's like, oh no, we have to find a Subway. Why? Well, Kanisi said that's where we eat lunch. They don't know why, but they're going to assume like, oh, she said we eat lunch at Subway. But if you understand, if you explain the why behind it and the thought process behind it, right? Same thing with atmosphere in the office. Have you ever had someone actually like sit down during atmosphere? You ever seen that? Well, if you explain to them the purpose of atmosphere, hey, in the morning what we do is we want to be in a peak state. What does a peak state look like? Well, Tony Robbins talks about how you have a greater chance of retaining information if you're high energy, if you're using all of your senses, and you explain the whys behind it. And then also the added benefit is they don't think you're walking into a cult meeting when they hear music playing in the morning, right? So, but if you explain the whys behind it with the person first, and then you're asking them questions that are low risk initially, you positively reinforce it when they do make those decisions, then you're going to have someone that can think for themselves. And ultimately, that's what we're doing, right? We're trying to develop entrepreneurs, not employees. So we're going to help people make great decisions. We're going to help them reach their highest potential. and we're going to help them, and we're going to celebrate those things. And so the real core of this, what I think people miss, is when you build someone's confidence and their self-esteem, and you teach them how to make great decisions, that's a winning combination. It doesn't matter how much product knowledge they have. It doesn't matter how much information they have. That person will figure it out, right? That person will be solution-oriented. They will get there, right? So the last thing I want to talk about, because I want to make sure you guys hear this loud and clear. In the beginning of my talk, I talked about how I did not write my speech. Now, that's not true. I did have some bullet points, and I had an idea of what I was going to say. But again, I wanted to focus on how people were going to feel and what they were going to take away, right? And so when you're in that flavors, like I said, everything we do as an owner. It flavors how I interview. It flavors how I approach recruiting. It flavors how I coach and develop and train people, right? But what I want to talk about is what you guys really want to know is how can you get from 0 to consultant in under 5 years, right? That's what you really want to know. And the thing is this, is because I see some faces in here and I know some people have been in the field different varying amounts of time. Do you guys know how long Rebby Sutherland was in the field before she got promoted consultant? 5 years. You can't answer. 5 years. Do you know how long Chris Migner was in the field before he got promoted to ownership? Do you know how long Malcolm Lavia was in the field before he got promoted to consultant? It doesn't matter. No one talks about that. The only thing that people talk about is how quickly they get promoted to consultant. You guys have probably all heard that I have the record, male or female, from the fastest from entry level to senior national consultant, right? You guys all know that. Well, it's because no one talks about how long it took me to get to assistant manager. No one talks about how long it took me to get to ownership, or even once I got there. All they know is that record stands. So you have to shed, again, those limiting beliefs we're talking about. That ship has sailed. It's a done deal. All I want you focusing on is how I'm going to get from 0 to consultant in 5 years. You guys with me? So as much as we talk about how you make people feel and those types of things, and I know Brad talked about the mindset earlier, there is no secret sauce. We were at the Retail Keys and someone said it, but they said success is boring. I recently, I was like on a bend, I wanted to like get back to my goal weight, and I did it. And the way I did it was I had the same flipping thing for breakfast. Actually, even now, I will eat the same thing for breakfast 7 days a week. I just do, unless I'm traveling. Like if I'm at home, I will have the same thing for breakfast 7 days a week. And all like pro athletes or people who are highly disciplined, whatever, they'll tell you the same thing. I eat the same thing for breakfast. I eat the same thing for lunch. It's very systematic. It's very easy to follow that plan. So for you guys, what it's about, it's funny. I had someone that came to visit me to see what I did and you know how they could get to the next level and things like that. And they literally said to me after the first day, "Oh, you're not that special." I was like, "Oh, thanks, appreciate you." Awesome, right? And they said, "No, I mean, you're just not really that great at the business." I'm like, "Oh, even better, like keep it going, like, right? Like this is awesome." And what they said is, "No, you have a system." And they said, "You just do this on Monday and this on Tuesday and this on Wednesday." I'm like, "Yeah, success isn't, it's not sexy. It's not reinventing the wheel every single time. It's about getting really good, having awesome habits, and doing those things over and over and over again. That's it." And I would say that, and Ed can tell you this, I think that's probably the one reason that I have grown the organization is because I'm extremely replicable. I remember Vera, talking to her one time, and I was frustrated because there was someone who had been in the business less time than me, but they appeared to be getting ahead faster. And one way to really frustrate yourself is to play the comparison game, right? And by the way, who should be further along? Really should, what does that even mean? And I said to her, "It's not fair. I'm doing all the right things. This person's cutting corners. They're doing this, they're doing that, and they seem like they're getting faster." And she said, "Stay the course. Do what you know how to do. And it'll come out." And this other person that I'm talking about, they're a consultant, they're doing fine, whatever, but I have literally 3 times as many offices as that person does. I've tripled the amount. And the reason being is, we go back to what I said earlier, but fast is slow is fast, right? So I didn't get caught up in the numbers and all these different things, whatever. I get caught up in the person. What I mean by that is, for example, I'm not going to touch too much on recruiting because I know that you guys are going to hear about that. But when I was in Charlotte, I was partnered with someone, and their wife was the recruiter. And she was subpar, we'll just say that, right? And I wasn't able to coach her or to even have input because it's his wife. And we have a rule, I don't know if you guys have it, but the phone rings twice, and someone doesn't answer it, then the assistant manager loses their override for the week. That's what we used to, I mean, Ed remembers back in the day.
3 rings and you're dead.
Yeah, exactly. Like you would literally lose your overrides for a week if it rang 3 times because, first of all, people didn't have cell phones back then. So you had to call them at their home phone, try and catch them, and then assume that their answer machine actually had like tape in it or whatever, to record the message. So, but anyway, so the phone rang 3 times. I was in Charlotte, I was an owner, I answered the phone. The person on the other end of the phone said to me, hey, I need to cancel my interview for Friday. And I said, oh, why is that? And he said, because Friday afternoon I'm going to a wedding, and I thought we were leaving later in the day, but we're not. We're leaving around lunchtime. And I said, and we only did interviews between 2 and 4. And I said, well, we don't normally do this, but I'm one of the hiring managers. I just happen to answer the phone. And if you can come in Friday morning, I'll do your interview, and then you can head off for the wedding, and that way you're not taking another day off work. Okay, no problem. So the person comes in, sits down with me, I do their interview, and that person's Michael Sessions. And so Michael started the following week, and to date, he's generated over $10 million in overrides for me from his organization. And on average, his org generates anywhere between $400,000 and $500,000 a year in overrides for me. So when we talk about, I want you to focus on the power of one, not many. So what I'm talking about is when we're talking about recruiting, yes, you have to have 20 seconds in the door. Yes, you have to do all these things, but never lose the value of that one individual. Think about how different my life is as a result of him being part of the organization and being a part of my business. What if I hadn't answered that call? What if I'd let Carrie answer it? Guess what Carrie would have said? I'm sorry, we can't reschedule you. Or worse yet, come in Monday. Is he going to take a Friday and a Monday off from work and then take another day off for a second? No. So when we talk about this, we think about that. You never know. You guys don't have the benefit of knowing which one of the people are going to walk through your door that's your Michael Sessions. You have no idea. So you have to treat every single person like they're that person for you. Because trust me, I have his badge picture. I mean, he did not look like consultant material when he walked in my office.
I thought it was odd when you pulled it out of the airport.
Well, I have, you know how I am about my planner? So I have Chris Allwater and Michael just in my planner because you never know when you're going to need to embarrass your consultants. It's just a good opportunity. They get too lippy or they get too big for their britches. I'm like, oh, I knew you win, sucker, and I get to slide that across the table, So it's just it's a fun party trick. But my point is that you don't have the benefit of knowing which one of the people you're going to recruit is that person. So you have to imagine that there's someone that's going to walk in your office next week that's going to generate $500,000 a year for you in overrides, perpetually every year. What kind of time, effort, and energy would you give that person? Would you maybe, spend some time with them outside the office? And I can tell you guys, Michael's very first day in the business, I took him out to dinner, did an opportunity on a napkin. I made sure his very first day in the business. And until Michael started in my office, I never got over 10 people, ever. And then he started on February 12th, 1999, it's McGregor's birthday. And fast forward to May of that year, we had over 30 people on the books, and we had 2 assistant managers. Now, Michael wasn't even one of them, but when you find that person that can attract other people that's a recruiter, it's priceless. And so when we're talking about being systematic, I didn't just do that with Michael. Ed, how soon were you in the business before we went out to dinner?
First week, I'm sure.
Like, within the first handful of days. And
I was throwing things out of your condo
off the balcony?
Day 4 or something.
Yeah, I roped him in.
You used to throw jugs of milk off of the 38th floor and watch them explode in the parking lot.
Okay. First of all, it was the 42nd floor, not the 38th. And there was an empty parking deck next door in the building. It was empty. There were no tenants. And so it was fun because you could see stuff smash before you heard it. Like the sound traveled slower. Does that make sense? And so you could
Faster than the speed of sound,
Yeah, so it was, anyway, fun. But you have to treat, I mean, I'm not saying throw things off balconies with your new guys. That's not what I'm saying. That's not the takeaway from here. But what I am saying is that you have to look at people. Don't ever lose, like when you're talking about numbers and recruiting, whatever, don't ever lose that hunger for the individual, because that individual can change your life, right? And so.
And I think along with that, I think it does you no good other than to think like that they're going all the way. Like you should assume the best out of everyone.
Right.
You know, I remember Avi Roth, who was the founder of Sickle, came to my office. I had 50 guys in there, and he was like, "And when you open up your office, and when you do this, and when you become a consultant," and afterwards I was like, "You don't really think everyone's going to run an office?" He goes, "No, of course not. But you have to talk like that for the people who are going to be."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So Brandie kind of always assumed I was going to be an owner, because it does you no good to think any other way.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we're talking about, so you find these people, you talent scout, you have their best interests at heart. The final piece of all this, it does you no good to do all of this, to show up in life this way and everything else, and then go to open up your office and say, "Oh, I'm going to do things my way," right? "I'm so much better, smarter, faster than my manager. Let me just, figure all this stuff out." So keep in mind that the top 5 things, do you guys know what the top 5 things are that stress people out the most in life, or that they're most fearful of? Moving's one of them.
Death.
Changing jobs, death. What else?
Money?
Public speaking, absolutely. So public speaking, changing jobs, moving, death, and marriage or divorce. Those are like the 5 times in someone's life, or 5 things that people are most stressed about or anxious about, right? So every single time we open up an office, we tick 3 of those off right away, right? They're moving, they're changing jobs essentially, even if it's the same campaign, right? And hello, we do public speaking for a living, right? So we need to make sure that people feel safe. And what feels, and people like, when people talk about kids and things like that, rearing children, kids need structure. They need to know what the boundaries are. They need to know what's in between the lines, what's not. When you're moving and you're opening up, you're basically taking your children with you, right? And they need to know that, guess what? We still do this in this office. We still operate this. We're going to do a continuation of everything we just had. Now, I'm not saying don't be an innovator, but if you're going to change the world, do it when you've got, $50,000 in the bank. Do it when you've got 25 people. And then because if something works, trust me, like be it Ed, Adam, or Michael, these guys are innovators. And so, but every time they innovate, they call me and they say, "Hey, have you thought about this?" Ed still does that to me now. "Hey, have you thought about this?" I'm like, "Was anyone piloting it? Is anyone testing it? Let's look at the numbers. Let's see the results." And if it's better, then we're all in, right? But I don't want someone trying to test the waters when you've just moved with these people, you're just opening up, they're scared, they're anxious, they're nervous, and you don't have the bankroll to back it up, right? So when we talk about being replicable, there's certain systems and things like that we have to have in place. The number one thing that I will say that's most important is you have to plan your week in advance. And for me, I plan my week on Thursdays, not Sundays, just because, for me, Sunday's like my only like game on, like family day. Of course, you guys are coming to the house tomorrow, but I plan on Thursday. And even when I was in the field and a leader, I would think about what my 3 big rocks were for the following week, because I'm going to, and I would talk to my manager about them Friday morning, because I was going to have to change my schedule to accomplish them. So let's say that I was going to have Shannon take on an interview, or let's say that Shannon needs to work on interviewing, April needs to work on training, Stephanie needs to work on rehash. I'm going to meet with my manager Friday morning and say, "Hey, listen, these are the 3 people I think I need to spend time with next week. How can we schedule so I can spend time with them," right? And then the best part is Friday afternoon, and if there's anyone else, another thing is this, is you don't have to be all things to every person, but you have to be an air traffic controller. So maybe I've got my 3 big rocks, and Kent's on my team, but he's not one of my big rocks, but he needs help, and maybe, I set him out with Ed next week. "Hey, Ed, can you and Kent get some time together?" Whatever. So I'm not going to leave you high and dry just because you're number 4, unfortunately, right? But I'm going to direct you and make sure you have a place to go. So, but I'm going to talk to those 3 people on Friday afternoon. I'm going to say, "Hey, Shannon, I want to get out with you next week. I want to help you with interviewing. Make sure you stay on trend. And I'm going to go out with you and take that interview out," right? Cool. "All right, hey, April, I'm going to help you with training. So make sure you're on standards. Make sure you get a new start. And when you have that day 1, we're going to go out together. I'm going to show them that." And if I have that conversation with someone on a Friday afternoon or Friday night, what do you think is going to happen between then and the time I actually get to spend time with them? What do you think is going to happen?
They plan on doing it.
They plan on doing it, right? What else?
Make sure they, get it done so that you are able to go out with it.
Okay, so maybe they're like, oh, I got to stay on standards. I got to whatever, right? So Brandon, get out with me. What else? Do you think maybe if they're planning for it, do you think maybe they clean out their car because they know that I'm going to be in it with them? Do you think maybe they press their suits or leave their clothes out the night before so they look sharper and they know that they're going to be with me? Do you think maybe they do a one-on-one with somebody or ask some questions to make sure they're on point? Like, oh, wow, Brandy's going to watch me interview. Let me make sure I'm on point with that, right? So the people that you're sharing this with and that you're spending time with, two things are going to happen. First of all, I hate being negative. I hate giving people bad news. I want to catch people at their best, right? So they're going to get marginally better at those things we talked about before I ever spend time with them because they want to impress me. The second part of that that's going to happen, which is awesome, is that they are going to be on their best foot. They're going to be in their best behavior. They're going to show me their best self. And I don't have to be negative Nancy all the time. I don't have to, constantly be like, you did this wrong or you did that wrong, right? And so I'm planning my week in advance. And the way I plan my week is I involve people. I let them know what's going on. Actually, for the office, I type up a schedule, and I post it every single Monday morning so everyone can see who's running leaders meeting every single day. People know what the topic of the leaders meeting is going to be. People can see what team night's going to be. Like, it's all posted. If we have any people that are coming in town, like a business trip, I've got it written on there with the business trip leaders phone number on there so people can connect with them. And if they want to, spend Tuesday night with them or spend time with them, whatever they can. Like, it's got the announcements. Any activities are going on, it's all on the sheet, and it gets handed out Monday morning, and it's posted in the office, so there's zero confusion. And I know for us, it seems overly simplistic. Like, why do you have to type 5 days a week that atmosphere starts at 11:30? That's stupid, right? But it's not about you. What is our business all about? The brand new person walking in the door. And what happens is we get desensitized to what's going on, and we forget that for them, it's their, for us, it's the 50th week in the business or whatever. For them, it's their first week or their only week.
The new guys always knew.
Yeah, new guys always knew, exactly, right? So I remember doing a final interview a few years ago, and the young lady said to me, I said, do you have any more questions? She said, yeah, just one. I said, what? She said, is it required to have first aid training to be a part of the company? And I said, no. And she said, well, I just thought because we're out talking to people all the time that, that was a requirement because I kept hearing them talking about CPR. Right? Creating personal relationships. So we use these terms and things all the time, and we forget that the brand new person walking the door has no idea what we're talking about. They don't have a frame of reference. So the point of having that agenda and that schedule, there's no excuse. There's no way a new person can say, I didn't know what team night was going to be, or I didn't know what time to be here, whatever. I'm sorry, it's printed, it's on the wall, it's literally there. There's no excuses. So if we're operating as if we're all about the new guy, then you'll do those things. You'll have the schedule. You'll plan it in advance, right? Every single Monday morning, I'm going to do exactly what I did when I was leader in the field. Hey guys, let's set our goals for the week. How many new starts? How many leaders promoted? How many apps we want to do? We're going to go over our new people.
Adam do that tomorrow with his leaders.
Yeah, you'll see him set his week up, right? And the most important thing isn't necessarily the how you do it, it's the fact that you do it, right? Because my thing is I've always said to myself that I want to live a life without regrets. And think about it, the only time you regret something is if you don't intentionally plan on it or think about it in the first place. So in that scenario I gave you guys with Shannon, April, and Stephanie, the one with the goiter neck, yeah. Kent was not one of my 3 big rocks. I'm going to put Kent out with that next week, but that's fine. If Kent quits next week and he wasn't one of my 3 rocks, do I regret it? No, because if it's really that big a deal, I would have planned intentionally to go with myself. Does that make sense? So a lot of the negative emotions that we have in business and in life is because we don't think intentionally. Like anytime you say, man, I should have gone out with Kent. I wish I had gone to dinner with this person when they were in town. I should have done this. The only time you do that is if you're not looking at your calendar, looking at your plan, looking at what you want to accomplish this week, personally and professional, and putting it down to paper. That's the only time you'd regret it. And every time you say should, or you have a regret, you create negative emotion and energy, right? And that's how people get that downward spiral. And that's how people have limiting beliefs, and that's how people get into that negative place, right? Where, man, people never stick around. This doesn't work. It all starts from something as simple as I should have planned for that person, or I should have made different plans. And so if you're planning your week, the how, I'm less interested. I don't care if you do it like Adam does or like Mike does or how you do it, but the act of sitting down and being intentional about what you want to accomplish is so valuable and so important. And I can tell you guys that, like I said before, that person came to my office, they said, you're not special, you're not good at this. You're right, I'm not. But I'm ridiculously consistent with my actions and my plan of attack, and I follow through. And if you pair and partner that with showing up with the right energy and focusing on the individual, then you can't help be successful. Yeah, you can't help but be successful, even if you can't say it. So thanks, guys. That's it. Yay.